Marcus hadn't told anyone he was coming home. That was part of the plan. No parades, no welcome signs, just peace. After 9 months buried in sand, silence, and enemies who didn't wear uniforms, he wanted to feel something real. So he took the Greyhound, shouldered his rucksack, and walked the last 3 blocks to Alicia's house, like he used to as a teenager, gravel crunching under his boots. Mind wandering back to home-cooked meals and her laugh echoing through their mama's kitchen. He stood outside her door now, sweat clinging to his brow despite the crisp Georgia air. A part of him felt like a kid again, one hand raised to knock, heart hammering like he was about to ask for forgiveness. He knocked once, then twice. Nothing. Frowning, he leaned close. Elisha. His voice was gravelly from disuse, or maybe just nerves. He checked the driveway. Her car was there. She was home. Then slowly the door unlatched. She stood in the frame, small and still. Her scarf was knotted too tight around her neck, hanging awkwardly across her left cheek. Her eyes were wide but distant, as if she was looking through him. For a moment, her mouth parted, but no words came. "Elisha?" he whispered, stepping forward. "Hey, it's me. I wanted to surprise you." She blinked, swallowed, then forced a smile that never reached her eyes. "Marcus. You're back?" "Yeah." He studied her face more closely. "You okay?" She opened the door just enough for him to slip inside. "Of course, just tired. It's been a long day." Marcus set down his rucksack slowly, eyes scanning the hallway. The air inside felt colder than outside. The shades were drawn. Usually spotless entryway was cluttered, shoes scattered, mail unopened. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was pressed, like it was trying to hide something. He said gently. "What happened to your—" He nodded toward her cheek. She touched the scarf instinctively. "Nothing, just—" Dropped my phone and hit the counter. Marcus said nothing. I've seen this before, not here, but overseas. Women in villages with sunglasses at night. Bruises explained away by clumsiness. Voices lowered, shoulders hunched. The signs weren't foreign to him, they were unmistakable. But this was Elisha, his baby sister. The girl who used to tie his boots for fun and defend him in schoolyard. Fights, she turned away and started toward the kitchen. "I'll make some tea. You probably want something warm, huh?" He watched her walk, movements rigid, spine too straight. He followed, but every step felt heavy, like crossing a field with hidden mines. Whatever this was, it wasn't just fatigue or stress. It was fear, and Marcus could feel it pulsing through the walls like static. He didn't say it out loud, but he knew it already. Something was very wrong here, and he hadn't come home to turn his back on a battlefield. Not this one. The kitchen was filled with the scent of rosemary chicken, and something burnt beneath it, maybe the edges of trauma. Elisha moved robotically, placing plates. With practiced care, saying little. Marcus watched her every motion. She barely touched her food. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the salt. They ate in silence until heavy footsteps echoed from upstairs. Elisha visibly stiffened, and Marcus felt it like a punch to the gut. Then came him. Adam emerged in a crisp, button-down hair. Still damp from a shower, clean-cut, smiling, the kind of man who might win over church committees and job interviews with ease. But Marcus didn't flinch. He'd met men like Adam before in uniform, too. Men who smiled before pressing the knife in. "Ah," Adam said smoothly, "this must be the famous brother, the soldier." "Marcus," he replied, not standing. His jaw was tight. "Good to finally meet you," Adam said, pulling out a chair across from him. "Wish I had some warning. Could have made a real dinner." Marcus gave a tight nod. Didn't come for the food. The three of them sat at the table like pieces on a board, Elisha barely breathing between them. Adam kept his eyes fixed on Marcus, but not with curiosity. With calculation. Marcus's mind drifted to their mother's voice, low and steady. "You've got to learn to see the world for what it is, baby. Some folks will smile and still lock the door when you walk by." Remembered growing up in that whitewashed town, teachers praising him for being well-spoken, kids asking Elisha if her curls were real. Her mama used to scrub floors at the hospital, never once promoted.
Dad.
Said her skin was her ceiling. Now Elisha was here, married to a man who looked like those same kids grown up. And Marcus saw the warning signs not just in the bruises, but in the space between her and her husband, the way she leaned away. So, Adam said casually, cutting into his food. What's it like serving overseas? Must be nice to get paid. To carry a gun? Marcus didn't smile. It's not the gun that makes it heavy. Adam chuckled like it was a joke. Bet they love having someone like you. Diversity and all. Alicia dropped her fork. It clattered. Excuse me, she said quickly, rising and grabbing a dish with shaking hands. Marcus locked eyes with Adam, cold and steady. You always this charming, or is it just for the in-laws? Adam smiled, but there was no warmth behind. And in the silence that followed, Marcus took in the room, the two clean countertops. The framed wedding photo on the wall where Elisha's smile looked frozen in place. He wasn't sure what battle he'd just stepped into. But he knew this wasn't peace, not even close. Marcus stayed longer than he planned. He told Elisha it was because of the jet lag, the need to recalibrate. But deep down he knew the truth. He didn't trust the air in this house. Every hour revealed more fractures behind the freshly painted walls. Adam's jokes came like a slow leak, persistent, poisonous. So, Marcus, he said one morning, sipping imported espresso, ever think about becoming a cop? You'd fit the profile. Big guy, intimidating. ... Bet people listen to you? Or another night at dinner? I bet your unit's all different. Flavors, huh? The Army sure knows how to hit that diversity quota. Marcus forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, the same one he used in hostile territory. He watched Elisha stir her mashed potatoes without looking up, and then there were the little corrections. Adam answering questions for her, interrupting when she spoke, commenting on how emotional she got when tired, while laced with a tone so civil it could be mistaken for affection by anyone not listening closely. The nights were the worst. Marcus would hear muffled voices behind their bedroom door, tension disguised as conversation, footsteps pacing, thud once, then silence. Alicia emerged the next morning with her sleeve tugged just a little too far down. Marcus sat with it all, and it aided him. Not just what Adam was, but what Marcus hadn't been. In their childhood, he'd promised to always protect her. Nobody messes with you, not when I'm around, he used to say, fists clenched like a tiny soldier. But he wasn't around not for years. Now, here she was, curled into herself in a house filled with shadows pretending to be light. One evening, after Adam left for a work dinner, Marcus found Elisha in the kitchen, wiping the counter with methodical focus. A wine glass sat on the edge of the marble island. Del, he said softly. How long's it been like this? She didn't look at him like, what? You know what I mean? It's fine, she muttered. Things get tense sometimes. All couples argue. Argue. His voice sharpened. Arguing doesn't leave bruises. She flinched. It's not like that, Elisha. He stepped closer. You haven't answered a single call from Mom. You don't eat. You barely talk. She gripped the cloth tighter. I'm tired of explaining myself, Marcus. You just got back. You don't know anything about what this house is like. I know what fear looks like. Her hand trembled. The wine glass tipped fell and shattered across the marble like brittle truth. Shards sparkled under the light. She gasped and sank to her knees to clean it, but Marcus pulled her back gently. Let it break, he whispered. You don't have to pick up the pieces alone. Tears welled in her eyes, but didn't fall. The home was immaculate, every surface gleaming, every photo framed just right. But it was lifeless, a sterile theater set hiding rot beneath the floorboards. Adam's world was built on control, polish, and silence, and Elisha had been surviving inside it. As Marcus helped her to her feet, his heart thundered, not just with rage, but with guilt, for every year he hadn't seen, for every sign he hadn't read. But now he saw everything, and he wasn't leaving her in it. Elisha didn't say a word the next morning. She moved like clockwork, coffee brewed, toast barely touched, face unreadable. Marcus had already made up his mind. Watching her flinch every time a phone buzzed, every time the door creaked, it was more than he could carry. "We need to go to the police," he said quietly. Not looking up from his plate, she froze, fingers hovering over her mug. "No, Elle, he's hurting you." Her voice was low but firm. "They won't believe me. I've seen what happens." He pushed back from the table. "Then I'll go." She stood, almost pleading. "Marcus, please don't make things worse." He hesitated, then left anyway. The precinct smelled like antiseptic and cheap coffee. Marcus stood at the front desk, fingers clenched, trying to slow his breathing. A young white officer glanced up from his screen, unimpressed. "Can I help you?" "My sister's being abused by her husband. I want to report it." The officer clicked something on his keyboard. "Did she come with you?" "No, she's scared." He shrugged. "Any visible injuries right now?" Marcus stared. "What the hell kind of look?" the officer said, leaning back in his chair. "Without a formal complaint or clear danger, there's not much we can do. Domestic stuff's tricky. Better to let family work it out. Let family work it out." That phrase sat in Marcus's gut like a live grenade. He turned to leave, but was intercepted by a black female officer and plainclothes detective Renee Calloway. She nodded him aside, voice low. "I heard what you said. I believe you." He met her eyes, tired, sharp, and knowing. "So help me," he said. She exhaled. "I've tried, but unless your sister files, there's no case. I can document your concern. I can check the history for prior calls. But the system, ... it wasn't built for us." He felt it all rushing in Helmand province, Kandahar, checkpoints with rifles in his face, even in uniform. One memory rose like bile. 6 months ago, being pulled over stateside, still in camo, and asked if the Humvee was stolen. The officer's eyes didn't see service, they only saw skin. He looked back at the desk clerk, who was already on to the next email. "We're soldiers in a war that doesn't wear flags." Marcus muttered. Detective Calloway nodded solemnly. "Ah!" "And we fight it every day." The fluorescent lights hummed above them like a flat line. Marcus caught his reflection in the fingerprints-mirrored window beside the exit, jaw clenched. Tired. A man trained to face enemies head-on, powerless in the country he fought for. He walked out into the late afternoon sun. Oh no. Report filed, no justice gained. But this war wasn't over. He'd fought men with rifles, could face one with a wedding ring. Marcus didn't knock this time. The front door swung open with force. He stepped inside like a man on mission. The air inside the house was thick, too quiet, too still. Elisha wasn't in the living room. He could hear movement upstairs, a drawer closing, then footsteps descending. Adam appeared at the top of the staircase, adjusting his watch, smug as ever. "Back again? Didn't get enough last time?" Marcus didn't respond right away. His fists were already clenched, nails biting into his palms. "You think because you wear nice shirts and smile through your teeth, I can't see who you are?" Marcus's voice was low, steady. Adam smirked, stepping down slowly. "What I am, Marcus, is a husband trying to keep his wife in line. She's lucky I've tolerated her attitude as long as I have." Something snapped. Marcus stepped forward. "What did you do to her?" Adam rolled his eyes. "I disciplined her." "You people don't know how to say it?" Marcus growled, stepping chest to chest. "Say it, I dare you." And Adam said it. A flash rage, motion, heat, then a crash. Glass, shouting, Elisha's scream. The living room erupted. A vase shattered across the floor, coffee tables splintered beneath them. Adam tried to swing, but Marcus strained, precise, bind him against the wall. Years of restraint gone in seconds. He wasn't just fighting Adam, he was fighting every time Elisha had been silenced. Every officer who looked away, every insult behind a smile. Elisha rushed in, eyes wide. "Marcus, stop, please." Sirens, fast, too fast. The door burst open, 2 officers, guns drawn. They didn't ask questions. They didn't see bruises. Or fear. They saw a black man standing over a white one, hands on your head. Now Marcus froze. His breathing heavy, fists raised halfway. Elisha stepped in front of him, sobbing. He's not the threat. Not listening. But it didn't matter. They handcuffed Marcus, pushed his face into the tile. Adam sat against the wall, holding his jaw, smiling blood. Through his teeth, blue and red lights lit up the room like war flares. A single drop of blood traced down the white tile. Elisha stood in the chaos, shaking, unheard. 3 days passed before Marcus was released. No charges filed, just a disorderly conduct note and bruises across his wrists from the cuffs. The only reason he walked free was because Nia Palmer, black journalist with a local podcast, aired a segment titled Decorated Veteran or Dangerous Black Man. It caught fire, but Elisha was gone, not answering calls, not at work, not at the house. Marcus searched everywhere. Guilt clawed at him. Had he pushed too hard? Left her exposed? Had Adam retaliated? Meanwhile, the town moved on. The same neighbors who waved from porches looked away now. The pastor at the local church called for calm and prayer. No one called for truth. And then in the fourth night, Elisha returned not to the house, to the park. There was a vigil forming, small but powerful, mostly black women, some neighbors, to teachers, a nurse, a teenage girl holding a sign that read, "Listen to black women, even when they're not screaming candles." Lined the sidewalk like quiet beacons. The soft hum of a choir floated through the air, harmonizing grief and resistance. Elisha stepped forward. From the shadows, her curls no longer pressed flat, her eyes no longer dodging. She held a folder in her hand, thick, worn at the edges. Photos, voice memos, emails, journal. My name is Elisha. Proof, her truth. My name is Elisha Thompson, she would later write. And I learned to whisper through broken teeth. I thought staying small would protect me. That if I was good, respectable, he'd change. But abuse doesn't need an excuse. It only needs silence. She took the microphone, not to speak, but to hand the folder to Nia, who had her recorder rolling. Later that night, Elisha and Marcus sat on a bench beneath an old oak tree, flickering candlelight dancing around them. I thought I had to be quiet to survive, she said, voice low. Marcus looked at her, eyes glassy. But surviving isn't living. She nodded, gripping his hand. I'm done hiding. A soft wind blew through the park, lifting the edge of a poster, "Her Story Matters." Elisha looked around, faces turned toward her, not in pity, but in fierce support. Women who knew her pain, girls who feared her silence, men who finally listened. She wasn't a headline or a symbol. She was a woman reclaiming herself, and though her voice trembled, it was louder than ever before. The rally became a chorus of rage, of hope, of truth long ignored, and tomorrow it would become action. The courtroom was colder than expected. Not in temperature, but intoned, detached, indifferent. The judge barely looked up when Elisha stepped forward to give her testimony. Adam sat just feet away, stone-faced, dressed like innocence. This time she did not flinch. Filing charges hadn't been easy. Every step of the process had been a reminder that the justice system wasn't built for women like her especially. Not black women. Forms lost. Appointments rescheduled. A counselor who suggested marriage repair before hearing the full story. But Elisha kept showing up. Not because the system worked, because she refused to disappear. When the arrest finally came, it felt anticlimactic. Adam was handcuffed quietly outside his office building, his lawyer already waiting at the precinct. There were no grand headlines, just a brief note buried in the local news. Local man facing domestic abuse allegations. No mention of her name, but Elisha didn't need validation from the press. She had something better, no voice. And Marcus. He stayed long enough to see the trial begin. Long enough to sit in that courtroom, back straight, watching his sister do what soldiers do, stand in the fire and not burn. Afterward, he packed his bag. But this time, it wasn't to escape, it was to rebuild. I've been trained to fight. Someone else's war my whole life, he told Elisha. Maybe it's time I help fight ours. They started smaller, borrowed room in a community center, a website built from scratch, a foundation for black survivors of abuse. Not just women, not just partners. It's anyone whose pain was invisible to the system. They called it not her fault. It spread, slowly, then faster. Donations trickled in. A volunteer therapist joined. Then a retired judge, and a church offered space. The stories came to quiet at first, then floodgates. Pain became testimony, and testimony became fuel. At a packed community forum one fall evening, Elisha stood. Behind a podium, the crowd leaned in, not because she raised her voice, but because her presence commanded it. I was never voiceless, she said, steady and strong. I was unheard. And now you'll listen. Applause followed, not explosive, but grounding. The kind that settles into the skin. Outside, the city walls began to change. A mural had been painted on a brick wall downtown Alicia. Mid-motion, wings rising behind her like a phoenix. Her eyes looked straight ahead, fierce, unapologetic. Marcus stood before it one morning, hands in his pockets. He smiled, just a little. The war wasn't over, but they had drawn new lines in the sand, and this time, they weren't fighting alone.